This is a seat post. So is this. This one's lighter. This one's heavier. This one doesn't cost very much. Well, this one's pretty expensive. But I'm going to make a case for using this instead of this on your gravel bike. Stay tuned. This seat post is made by Ritchie. It's aluminum, doesn't cost a whole lot, doesn't weigh a whole lot, and it's going to do a fine job of fitting in your bike frame and holding your saddle up in the air so you can pedal your bicycle. I mean, how can it get much better than this, right? This is a suspension seat post by Redshift. This is their shock stop. It's the pro version. It fits in the frame and it holds the saddle up in the air so you can pedal your bicycle. But it's quite a bit more complicated. It's quite a bit heavier and it's quite a bit more expensive. But you know, recently I made a move to using a Redshift suspension seat post. I want to talk about my journey, why I did that, why I think maybe for you, you should do it too, because I waited too long to experience really how good this can be. Anyway, it's my journey. Here we go. You know, when I started riding gravel bikes, I found out right away, it's bumpy out there. You know, it took me back to the early days of mountain biking where we didn't have suspension. You just got used to getting beat up, but you know, I was a lot younger then, and I'm not what I was, and I don't want to get beat up too much anymore. And the roads around me, well, they're very poorly maintained dirt roads, rain ruts, rocks, etc., etc. It's not champagne gravel. So when I got to riding my gravel bike, I loved the simplicity of it. I loved how it really was kind of that feeling of the early days of mountain bike riding, but I didn't like the beat down very much. And so, of course, running a bigger tire at lower pressures as much as I could get away with, but I wanted, well, a little bit more if I could get it. And so on the front of the bike, you know, I installed a Redshift shock stop suspension stem, and I've had one of those on every gravel bike I've owned, and I will continue to do that because it takes a tremendous amount of sting out of the front end of the bike for your wrists, your shoulders, your neck, etc. But what about the saddle? What about what you're sitting on? That's a lot of bumps coming up through the rear tire. Something like this Ritchie post in aluminum, and even if it was carbon, it can only do so much because it can only has so much give to it to take some of the sting out of it. And here's the other complication with a seat post like this, whatever it's made out of, depending upon how much you weigh, will depend upon how effective this is, how much compliance you get. If you're a big heavy rider, maybe you're a 200-pound guy or something, you're going to flex the seat post more than somebody that's like Mrs. Granny Gear, who is a whole lot lighter than that. If you're a lot lighter rider, you will get less compliance out of a rigid seat post, no matter what it's made from. As well, depending upon how much seat post you have sticking out of your frame, if you only have that much sticking out, well, you have a whole lot less seat post to flex. So those two factors will always determine how much compliance you'll get out of a seat post. Now this is what I have been using, for, I guess, 5 or 6 years. This is a titanium seat post made by Linsky. This is more compliant than any seat post I've used that is just traditional. The titanium just has kind of a natural compliance to it, and the way they have built this, it has really a really nice ride quality to it. And it's been good enough for me, or at least I've told myself it's been good enough for me for many years. It's also simple, and it's light, and it's not cheap. It's about a $200+ seat post, I think $225 or so. But it's done a really good job. So why make the switch at all? This one is lighter and simpler. This is heavier and more complicated. This is cheaper. It's not cheap, but it's cheaper than this one. It's a $300 seat post. That's quite a bit of money for a seat post, isn't it? So why would I want to add weight and complication to my bike? But you know, 30 years ago, I had a back surgery. I got to the point where I couldn't really walk very well. I was in constant pain. All the neurological symptoms. I had two bulging discs that I had ruptured building some mountain bike trails. So yeah, that wasn't such a great move for me. The whole point of that was 30 years ago, and I'm doing pretty well, and I do pretty well. However, I don't really want to have a second back surgery. And I noticed on some of my more recent, longer, rougher rides that surgery area was starting to become impacted. You know, when I did the rock cobbler, that was just a beat down, that pebbler ride. And I thought, how much energy did I waste unweighting and stopping pedaling and to absorb a bump so I could keep going? How much did that take from me throughout the day? And when you factor in that, how much better off would I have been with this over this? Yes, it's heavier than this, but in the end, if I can keep pedaling more efficiently, if I can be fresher at the end of the day, do I care that it's heavier? The last few rides that have been longer and more difficult have really keenly made me aware the fact that my body is wearing out and breaking down. I want to ride for another 10 years or more. And if it means a little bit of additional grams on my bike, if that's what that gets me, that extra 10 years of riding performance and comfort, well, I think that's probably a very worthwhile trade-off. So Redshift was kind enough to send me a couple of their shock stop seat posts. This is the Pro version. It's a little lighter, a little simpler, a little less tunable. I also have the regular version. It's right now mounted on my Turner Cyclosis. So the plan is, I've got a couple saddles here. This is the Wilderness Trail Bike Silverado. It's a little bit older model. I've got a couple of these. It is a classic saddle. I love this saddle. I'm going back to using it, and it is really a great gravel bike saddle in my opinion. So I'll have the same bike, the same saddles, and we'll have two versions of this seat post. And I'm going to find out really how the trade-offs are. What do I get out of it? What do I lose from it, if anything? And I'm going to report back after a little while for you guys. So hopefully I can help you come to this decision a little sooner than I did, and maybe take some pain out of your back as well. All right, that's it for now. Report back when I know more. You guys have a great week and or weekend. And as always, go ride your bikes.